I will call this meeting to order. For the record, it is July 21st, 2020 at 4:30 p.m. We will begin this joint meeting with roll call attendance.
And Mr. Mayor, would Ashley like to call her meeting to order prior?
Yep. Mr. Mayor, if I may do that.
Mr. Winter, go ahead.
Yeah, so on behalf of the Meridian Development Corporation, I'd like to call to order this joint meeting between the City of Meridian and City Council and the Meridian Development Corporation, and also ask the clerk to call roll on our behalf as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilwoman Strader?
Here.
Councilman Hoagland?
Here.
Councilwoman Perot?
Here.
Councilman Burnt?
Here.
Mayor Simison?
Here.
And for the Meridian Development Corporation, Dave Winder?
Here.
Dan Basilone? Nathan Mueller? Tammy DeBeard? Steve Vlasic? Rob McCarville?
Here.
Diane Bevan?
Here.
Treg Burnt?
Here. Yeah. Still here.
Councilman Burnt is here. And Kit Fitzgerald?
Here.
And for the record, Dan Basilone is joined as well. Okay, item number 2 is adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Burr.
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second the motion. I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as published for the Meridian City Council. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. Item number 3 is a joint meeting between Meridian City Council and Meridian Development Corporation. Item 3A is a civic block project update. I will turn this over to Cameron to start it off.
Everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the joint council and board. It's a pleasure to be with you. I want to make sure Dean can hear me okay as well. Cool. It's a pleasure to be with you all. It's exciting times in downtown, as many of you know, and as a kind of an executive committee, we'll kind of talk through a number of things, but we felt like it was appropriate and timely to come before you and give you this update. The purpose of this update really is to give you some context. Many of you are may be new to our efforts, joint efforts. Some of you obviously not, but felt like that additional context would be appropriate. It would also be somewhat of a an opportunity to seek feedback from you all, and then it's also an accountability measure from us, just given where we are in the process and where we'd like to be heading, to make sure that we're doing all that we can to move our efforts forward. So with that, I'm going to kind of dive in just to some context for you all. What this meeting is not is we are not seeking any action at this time, but we truly are wanting to seek the council as well as the board's input into our process and make sure that we're incorporating it where appropriate. So the timely thing is just giving you some background. The city and MDC, has been working on joint efforts in the downtown for a number of years. We've been working in regards to the city's strategic plan and comprehensive plans, and even the newly minted comprehensive plan, and also as the city's formulating its new strategic plan, the downtown continues to be a focus. This also is evidenced as well by the MDC destination downtown plan as a focus for our joint efforts. And I must say we're jointly pleased with the progress. As you guys know, we won't list the exhaustive list, but there's a lot of great things happening in our downtown that really are noteworthy, and that we're very proud of those efforts. But as you know, back in August of 2019, the city issued in concert with the MDC board a joint RFP to basically redevelop what we now call the Civic Block. So it's the Idaho Broadway and area between 2nd and 3rd Streets. And so that process was kicked off, and there's a timeline included in the memo there that if we want to talk through any of those logistics, but there's a significant effort since that time to move this particular part of town forward in the redevelopment efforts. Based on the responses of that RFP, it was unanimously decided to select the Galena Opportunity Fund, Galena, as our partner in this redevelopment effort. And through various processes and their response, the use of tax increment finance was suggested as a potential funding mechanism. So with that in mind, we looked jointly at the downtown urban renewal area that sunsets in 2026, so a short time horizon there, and it became clear that we needed to create a new district to extend the life of that to make some of our redevelopment efforts a reality. Our partner, Galena Fund, we have Bill Truex on the line. You'll hear from him in a moment. But the Galena Fund did fund an effort to analyze that area, and as you're aware, that was completed recently at the end of July. So we're very pleased that we're on track with that effort. It was a Herculean effort with a lot of people involved. So glad to report the success of the creation of the new Union District. Also, I mentioned the executive committee, which is essentially the members of the community development department of the city, also Parks and Rec department, city attorney's office, MDC, and then the Galena Fund, and then we'll pull in others as needed. Has been meeting essentially weekly since the RFP was adopted, and so those efforts continue to go forward in earnest. Two of our major tasks, of course, were to establish that new district, so we can check that box, and also is the ongoing design and effort to plan and move forward the implementation of the Civic Block. A big part of that, obviously, is the city's portion of that, which is the community center. And I'll give a brief commentary about that in a moment, as well as potential residential, commercial uses on that block, parking, and potential open space in that area is envisioned. So with that, I'm just going to dive into kind of the community development piece of this. As you're aware, there are many people involved in this. We continue to reach out to our partners at the Library District, VRT Compass, the Downtown Business Association. It's good to see that Lindsay's on with us, and the Chambers of Commerce, who obviously have a vested interest either directly or indirectly in the redevelopment of our downtown. So we wanted to note that our involvement, not only as a committee, but also with our stakeholders, has been very involved. We've been particularly looking for parking solutions, also for transit potential or integration, and also very pleased. I know many of you are aware, but pleased at the progress with the reopening of Unbound, the library district's Unbound location on the Civic Block, which is moving forward in earnest. So we're pleased with those efforts. Community development also, Tori Cleary in particular has been working with the Parks and Rec Department, Finance, and others to develop a pro forma and business plan for the community center, with Parks and Rec truly leading the charge there. So a lot of efforts there from Steve and Garrett to really form up a plan in that regard. Speaking on behalf of Parks, and I know Steve's available for questions later, but a lot of effort's been done on their side of the house. A lot of site visits here locally. COVID kind of threw a wrench in their efforts to go south. They had some plans to go to Utah and visit some community centers there, but they've been able to do a lot of that research over the internet and through connection there. But really just trying to research and understand how best to form and function a community center. So a lot of effort there. And as many of you are aware as well, we did do a presentation to the Parks and Rec Commission here at the beginning of July. It was good to get their feedback, and they appreciated that update as well. And we'll continue to work with them on the Parks and Rec side of the Civic Block project. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Ashley for a portion of the MDC update. If we can get her unmuted.
Sorry. I realized that about 5 words in. Sorry about that. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, and MDC board members, appreciate the opportunity for this joint meeting today. I'm going to keep our update fairly brief, as Cameron has mentioned, with the approval of the Union District on June 9th. We are official, and thank you all for your hard work on this. We are very appreciative. So with the creation of that district, this allows our agency to be able to entertain agreements with the developer or a developer in the form of either a development agreement and or an owner participation agreement. The purpose of those agreements will outline what site improvements would be reimbursed with MDC, either through general fund dollars or through the TIF that the project actually generates itself. So in order to enter into the agreement, there are a number of items that need to be provided or completed by the applicant, and that includes an approved development plan. We need enough project details and approvals for the project. We actually need a formal request from the developer and how they believe they are in compliance with our specific plan for the Union District. They also need to give us some estimated costs, so we have something to gauge by as we are looking at reimbursements to a developer. And then the board would ultimately have to approve this, and they do have the ability to say yay or nay if they don't believe it actually fits within the vision of what the district was created for. So the timing, we are starting conversations with the developer this week, actually, just to start outlining the process, the information that's needed, but I don't believe we'll probably have any sort of agreements in place for a few months. They need to get to that level of detail that I think we can move forward with, but that'll, we'll see. We're inviting Cameron and his things to at least understand where we are in our process and just making sure that the communication is flowing from both the city and MDC. So we are committed to working with Galena. They've been great to work with thus far, and I think this is going to be a good partnership moving forward. So with that, I'm going to bounce it back to Cameron, and I'm happy to stand for any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate that. So with that, I'm just going to pull up a visual for you all, just to give some aerial context to it. No pun intended. Let's see if I can get that. Sharon. And at this point, I wanted to just kick it over to Bill to give kind of an update a relevant update on the Union 93 project and specifically to the civic block. So, Bill, if you want to take it over.
Yes, thank you all for having us on. We have had the opportunity to work with City and the MDC over the last few months. Feels like a few months, but it seems like it's almost a year now. So we've really gotten to know and love that area down there. Right now, just to give everyone a little bit of a status update on the Union 93 site, which is the 6-acre parcel to the south of the Civic Block, which is the source of the TIF revenue to fund the Civic Block improvements. The quiet title action lawsuit concluded at the end of June, so we're through that portion of the process. We're awaiting one notice period to expire for the Bureau of Land Management, and then we'll be able to move to closing. We're expecting sometime between August 15 and September 15, depending on how quickly we can move through Union Pacific's title transfer process. We have title in place and ready to go. The judgment was just filed, I think, this morning. So all of that is shaping up well. We're through what I believe is the risk portion of the endeavor as far as the site acquisition is concerned. One of the other key milestones that we went through is that Union Pacific had a regulatory restriction on the use of residential anywhere on the site. So we had to go through an extensive site diligence process, phase 1, phase 2. The phase 2 did not turn out anything significant to deal with. There was some cleanup remediation required, but it's not anything that's overwhelming. So we are continuing forward now and closing sometime between August 15 and September 15. The reason I want to take a step back is that again forms the basis for creation of the TIF to fund the Civic Block improvements that we are proposing. So to move one block to the north on the Civic Block side, we intend to submit for a tax credit application to IHFA in the August round. We anticipate submitting that application and then getting notice of whether or not we received an allocation probably in November, December on the specific uses that we're outlining on that project. And dependent on whether we are successful or not, it'll determine what path we move on the Civic Block side as the proposed alternatives for the best fit that we see out there. Both of those, to confirm, are taxable uses. Both of those are going to have some use of some mixed use element in them. And that'll be something that we have ongoing as a discussion with MDC and MDC's board over the next month and a half as we prepare for the application submittal. Does anyone have any questions for me on it? Oh, there you go.
Excellent, Bill. Yeah, we'll just transition right to the Civic Block stuff if you want to go into that.
Perfect. Yeah. So what we are thinking about is how to successfully monetize the TIF across the projects, and what are eligible uses is a very paramount concern to us and to MDC. So we will be walking through how we believe the financing structure will be optimally created to allow for multiple uses on the site. In this specific plan that you're seeing, and it's a very schematic proposal, just so that we can get a level of comfort as to what we are doing and proposing, and then we'll follow with the architectural detailing to go into the tax credit application if this is determined to be a good fit for the Civic Block. So what we're proposing as a complement on the Union 93 market rate housing to the south, we're proposing 40 unit LIHTC project for seniors that will be at the north end of the site. I don't think you can see at the northeast corner of the site. That building would be proposed to be on a podium park structure. And then immediately to the south of that, there will be a little courtyard between the two buildings, but there would be another 60 units, and that would be workforce housing, trying to create an effective economic stratification. Again, we've got to the south a significant number of residential units that are coming in that have no income restrictions. So we want to provide some optionality for folks who work in, teachers, admin, police officer, what other jobs that are definitely needed downtown, create a nice, vibrant fabric and framework for the future of the area. And then the idea is to create, there is an irrigation lateral that runs north-south on the property. So what we're proposing is to create a green strip between there that creates a nice pedestrian connectivity corridor through and over the site. There were some earlier iterations that were provided by GGLO. If this is determined to be a good fit, we will have those brought up to speed to match this proposal, and then we'll move forward along that path. And then to the northwest corner of the site is where we would propose to put the community center. And again, all of this is intended to be a cohesive and connected neighborhood. So the placemaking and the site planning will involve a lot of communication back and forth between the buildings to make sure that none of the buildings feels like it's separate and standing alone with no interaction. But it will be nice to have some spaces that are private to the individual multifamily components of the project. But the idea is to maximize the site density of the, almost a city block worth of ground, and replace the existing Centennial Park with more of a north-south oriented park corridor rather than just a standing park the way it exists now. You can see the parking ratios that we've got in there as well. That is still going to be an ongoing discussion and negotiation with the other stakeholders in this, because there will be a shared approach to parking between that site and the site to the south, the Union 93 site to the south. The last thing that I wanted to cover on this is that we are also proposing to bring in Terry Riley Health Services. Wanted in our earlier iteration of the Union 93 site, they were wanting to have a clinic space in there. We thought it might be an optimal arrangement to have it up in the civic block side, where we could bring in their specific stratified health service. So they have up to 200% AMI services. They have income graduated health services provided to folks, and then the cost of those services is based on income, and then you've got a sliding scale up to 200% of AMI. So we thought it's a fantastic addition to the area. You can still go to St. Luke's, St. Al's, but for many of the folks that exist in the area, it's a fantastic option, and certainly would be walkable for anyone in that rapidly revitalizing downtown core.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader?
can we ask questions as we're going along?
Sure.
Yeah, happy to. From my perspective, shoot away.
Okay. So if I understand, and I'm newer, so I'm still sort of following the progress, but it looks like some of the anticipated surrounding uses are changing. So there was an auditorium and a school contemplated. Now you're considering a LIHTC project. Can you give us a feel for that use? Is it 60% of the AMI? What are you looking at there? And then I would be curious if for the project to work, second question, are you reliant on a LIHTC equity investor and financing to make that happen? Or what are the pieces that need to come together, I guess, on the other side from the developer's perspective to make this project work?
The answer to a couple of multi-part questions. So it is a LIHTC based application on the multifamily component there. So if we submit to IHFA, there's a competitive process. If we're allocated credits, we would bring on an equity partner. We work with equity partners regularly. So getting an investor in those credits is not a difficult concept. Right now, the credit market is, like many issues in the market, sort of undefined. You get pricing that varies. To give you an example, downtown Boise, we were at somewhere like 92 or 93 cents per credit dollar on the last funding round. In this funding round, we would be assuming that there's probably about 84 cents is the market rate for those credits. So you're not generating anywhere near the credit equity that you were, but there are still investors to buy those credits as the market stands right now. We would apply under that understanding. If there was a larger market shift that became that made the program structurally unstable, I think that you'd have federal stimulus coming in like in 2008, 9, and 10 to help create the credit equity via some program like the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act or something similar to that, because you generally have a lot of support bipartisan to make credit deals work. They are complicated. So right now, equity investors are going to pick the easiest deals for them to understand, or the deals that have the biggest sort of story byline. And I think this one has a fantastic storyline where you've got the MDC and the city and the Parks Department all participating in a public-private partnership to get the development done. So from the ability to place the equity standpoint, I don't right now see a big risk. It's more of, can we get the sources and uses to work? And right now, short answer is our model is working as it stands, and that's assuming current credit pricing. But we won't know. The biggest challenge with the credit application is that we won't know about the result until November or maybe early December, because it's a process that IHFA conducts.
Mr. Mayor, a follow-up.
Councilman Schrader.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's helpful. I just, part of my day job, I occasionally work on affordable housing deals, so I know there's a lot of complexity. Maybe help us understand. I think you guys wanted just general feedback. I'm supportive of trying to have some, more affordable type of housing, especially for workforce housing for folks that are working in the city that need to be close to downtown. I think that we don't have enough of that. It makes a lot of sense to me. I think what would be helpful is it feels like we're making some kind of a trade-off from maybe the uses that were previously proposed. Did you touch on what percentage of the AMI this project would serve, and just give us a flavor for how it serves that purpose or mission of affordable housing?
So it would be 90% affordable on the 40 unit project. So 36 of those units would be affordable to folks 30% to 60% AMI. The other 4 would be unrestricted market rate units. On the project to the south, that would be a 60 unit bond transaction. And so those are going to be up to 80% AMI. The aggregate though, and when you take the entire deal stack, it's going to be an average of 60% AMI. And it is different from the proposal in the past. The school concept created challenges that I think are difficult to get around with circulation patterns and that kind of thing. I still think a school is a great option. I just don't think that on this specific site that we could get the user that we needed to get it done. And just to provide a little bit of context as to the affordability, to the south, we've got 330 units of residential or 345 units of residential, and that's unrestricted to any income threshold. So there is a very significant amount of residential addition in the space that is not affordable. So we're always sensitive to the amount that you're adding in there because you don't want to have specific concentrations of it. And I will add one other thing because you are specifically working in the affordable space. Right now, they're in market on the equity side, all but two big institutional players and buyers of credits exist in the market. So they've all taken a step back. I think a few of them are coming back in, but that's Fannie and JP Morgan Chase. They are investing in one of the deals that we've got downtown Boise. So from a risk perspective, I can understand why there is that question. We're hopeful that Fannie is not the only investor in the near future, but not sure right now.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, we'll continue the presentation.
Mr. Mayor, that actually, Bill and his team, that concluded the presentation portion. So we'd certainly be open to any questions. We have myself, Ashley, Bill, and Steve on the line to answer any questions that you may have. And again, just open to your feedback and thoughts, and we'll go from there.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Pro.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here, Mr. Truax. I imagine there's been a lot of study done on what other cities have considered for their civic plazas or similar type of projects. What are you seeing in other locations in relationship to this?
I think it's a city-specific issue. I mean, a lot of it is people want to add housing to the downtown core. That is pretty common. COVID, in Idaho, I think we interpret COVID differently, and density hasn't been something that we're overly concerned about from what we've seen. But from what we see out there, people want livable, walkable, as close to transit options as they can. Again, COVID notwithstanding, because we don't know what that's going to do to public transport. But there is a big focus on the livability aspect of these redevelopment plays, and almost all cities that we have been working with do want to see some element of office or retail added in, but they are sensitive from what we see right now to the issues. And I'll give you, just out in Puget Sound, we have a development where it was 8,500 square feet of retail in a mixed use building. It got cut down to 2,000. We may add that back in by the time you place it in service. But right now, the big ad that's impacting a lot of people's perspective or flavoring their perspective is how to add those in a way that is perceived to be financially feasible by typical lending and equity markets. So we've seen cities adapting to that and allowing flexibility on that front. But I think at the end of the day, we all kind of want the same thing. We want something where you can walk to your hyperlocal stuff, but also being sensitive to the reality that some things may not be able to be built if we tip them too far one way or another.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Fitzgerald.
I just want to just voice my I'm just absolutely thrilled with this new setup because I just believe this is what downtown Meridian has needed for so long for economic development and for people to be able to support the businesses around it. We just have always needed bodies down here. And after all these years, with MDC and so forth, it just makes me so happy. I know probably Dan Basselin's sitting there super happy too, to see the fact that we could have this many people frequenting our downtown.
Thank you. For the record, I just want to note that Councilman Kavner joined us at 5 o'clock. Well, I'll take a second and share my feedback. I've shared it before with a few of you, but a couple of the concerns I have with at least this proposal is that it's still leaving the that space in the middle where we have the lateral in place. In my opinion, if we're making an investment in this type of size of this project, that should be removed and put into the street. I think that's an important infrastructure improvement that should be done at this time rather than later when we have construction in the area, just so we have the ability to maximize the full space along this block and not something we have to go back and do at another time. I've also expressed some of my concern, and Ms. Truax just mentioned it, regarding some commercial retail, especially along Idaho. I think Idaho is, our main commercial street, and having that essentially stop under this direction at the corner of the community center where we have an opportunity to extend it. And removal of that lateral at least makes that a possibility in the future. If it's not part of this project, at least another proposal to have that be part of it. I know there's always been conversations about what Second Street should be, and while a pedestrian walkway in this project looks nice, I think Second Street can be the pedestrian travel walk space through the city. It may not ever be an 8th Street concept, but I don't think it should be precluded as being that walkway through our downtown space. Again, I've already shared that with most of the people involved in the project, but just so it's on the record for the rest of you to hear. Councilor, commissioners, any other questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Council Administrator?
I guess I would be curious if it's, possible, if the economics would work to move that lateral if the developer is open to leaving it open for some street level retail along Idaho. That seems like it could still be compatible with the residential project, maybe just in different stories of the project. I guess that felt like a good suggestion. I'd be curious if they have feedback on it.
I know we had explored the concepts various times. We'll go back now that we're looking very, very hard. As soon as we defined and knew that we could move forward on the Union 93 side to the south, all of it becomes a very significant reality because all of the civic block issues are dependent on the creation of the TIF off of that project. So we will explore that more. I'm not sure that I was aware that was an intended thought pattern. I know I'd heard about the retail along Idaho, but not the sort of like creation of an 8th Street style approach. So I'll confirm and confer with our team and figure out what options we have to go that route. Our application for LIHTC doesn't preclude any of those things from my perspective, because our tax credit deals are still going to sit on a podium structure above ground, so that concrete podium structure can have stuff in it. We're certainly aware of the magic of a concrete structure, so we'll go back and explore that. As far as the lateral, I mean, doing the work is not it's securing some ACHD. It's not even right-of-way issues. It's just easement confirmation and stuff. It's more of the question of whether the expense is rational right now or not. I think you probably can achieve the grades across going north to south if you shift it over to the 3rd Street right-of-way. The number I heard was about 300,000 to relocate it. That seems like an awful lot to relocate a pipe to me, but you know, that's I've been accused of minimizing construction costs before. But we'll certainly go back and look at that. And that would, if we did approach the lateral that way, again, that doesn't change whether or not we can do a LIHTC deal or not. It just shift the building over nominally. So we will confer on that, and then we'll respond formally.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Evans.
Thank you. Bill, could you expand a little bit on the community center portion of that project, and maybe the intended use of the square footage for public use meetings and things like that? I mean, there is a need in Meridian for that type of space, and just kind of what you envisioned it with a 2-story building instead of maybe just a larger footprint area for large events.
I defer to Mr. Sidaway to respond to that.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I turned on my video. I think that's probably better for me to address. So the uses as currently intended have not changed. And what I would draw your attention to, and everyone's attention to, is in the memorandum presented for this meeting, the last 2 pages, attachment E, describe the vision and the proposed building program for this structure. That is still currently our intended space layout plan. It's still subject to change as we get into design. As you know, there was a concept design that was submitted with the RFP that had everything on one floor for us, and much more of a street presence. It took up most of the site. Now this would be a smaller footprint, but would go vertical, and you know how that lays out, we don't know today. So I expect that we're going to have more interesting conversations about the design side of this once we get through the uses side of this and are able to start moving forward again on the design, because the design aspect has been on hold while we've been going through the formation of the urban renewal district, et cetera, concentrating on the uses for the site. But in terms of your specific question as to the types of rooms and their sizes, I would just refer you to page 10, and that shows you what's currently on our plan.
Council, Commission, any additional questions at this time?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Kavanagh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, apologies to the council and commission for my tardiness. If this is already covered, then I can just catch it on the YouTube replay. But I was only able to see the map for a couple of moments before it went away. My question is about planned use for park. To me, it's very important that we maintain some level of park space for our downtown residents, and I couldn't get a sense of if that is going away or is remaining or being relocated. And anyone who can speak to that, I'd appreciate it, whether it's Steve or Mr. Duet or Cameron.
I was pausing for Bill, but I can maybe just initially say that what Bill presented there in the center as Centennial Plaza, you can see the notes as green walkable benches, gathering areas. That is the intended open space for the site today. What you may have missed with Mayor Simonsen's comments was he was just asking if the right now there is the Hunter lateral that runs through that area and it requires it to stay open. If that can be relocated as part of this project to allow that portion of the site to possibly be developed in the future, then that was part of the discussion that was just had. But per this concept, that central space is intended to be a plaza. And then if the lateral is able to move, then at least the frontage along Idaho would open up options for the retail space that the mayor was talking about. Anything you would add, Bill?
Just we're also looking to vacate the alley if at all possible, so that it becomes more of a pedestrian use alley. Not a problem to keep it open so that you can still have loading into the projects as necessary, but I think it would add a significant amount of flexibility to that space as you look at connecting and programming for other downtown events that connect to City Hall and along Broadway. So just opening up the foot flow.
Mr. Mayor, follow up.
Mr. Kavanagh.
Steve, if I remember correctly, right there, we've got, a basketball court, gazebo, picnic shelter, restroom, a small play structure. We have benches. It is walkable. There is a little bit of green space. Am I missing other amenities?
There's no actual play structure, but there is the Neos electronic structure game. Yeah.
Okay. So, and forgive me for just asking the question directly. It appears that we would have less of amenities for the public with this project than we currently have. Is that correct?
Honestly, we haven't even talked about it.
Okay.
I guess what I hear is you expressing a desire to have a similar amenity level. Is that?
I think, Steve, Mr. Mayor, sorry, excuse me. Mr. Mayor, members of the Council Commission, I think I've always long maintained that our downtown residents don't have a lot of, green space that is close to them, the exception of maybe Story Park. And if we were to move forward on this, it would be important to me that the park space that they already have access to should be enhanced, not restricted. Or reduced, excuse me.
And Councilman Kavanagh, long before I was elected, I've always said that trying to find a way to replace this eventually in downtown could be part of what we do. Whether it's on this location or some other location, I think is something for us to be mindful of and looking at. I mean, we have a nice parking lot in front of City Hall that could become a great park someday if other parking was found as a way to offset. But I think that's part of the conversation and part of the challenge for our parks director is how do you find space in our downtown long term?
Sure. Mm-hmm. Don't even begin to assume, Mr. Mayor, sorry, that it's an easy solution for sure.
Council, Commission, anything else? Okay, Cameron, any last comments to close us out?
Mr. Mayor, council, members of the board, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for the questions and the feedback. It gives us a lot to chew on as a partnership and as an executive committee to keep things moving. We will look to continue to update you at meaningful points in the process. We do look to have design rolling forward in earnest and other things that will be important for you to weigh in on. And again, just appreciate the time and the feedback. So thank you so much.
Mr. Winder, we have a rest of our meeting to get to. Would you like to close out the MDC portion of this meeting?
Sure, yeah. I guess we'd need to open it up to a board member to make a motion to adjourn our portion of the meeting.
I'll make that motion, Dave.
Second,
Was that Diane on the second?
it is Dave.
So a motion by Commissioner Bassalone and a second by Commissioner Bevan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned for us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, commissioners, for your time this afternoon. Council, that moves us to item 4 on our agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Burr.
I move that we go into executive session per Idaho Code 74-206A 1A and 1F. Excuse me, the second one's different. 74-206 1F. Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, second the motion. With the question, we're not doing D.
Yes, we're going to move D to the 28th.
Okay, thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Perot.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Hoagland.
Aye.
Byrne.
Aye.
All ayes.
Pastor. I see you there.
Yes, good evening. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. They're just finishing up their executive session, and they'll come out, adjourn, and then start this meeting, and then we'll be ready for you.
All
Thanks for being
righty,
here.
very, very good. Do you expect it to be relatively on time?
Yes, should be any moment now.
Yeah, okay.
Thank
Do you want me to mute?
Whatever is working for you. Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Since I'm on fairly early and I'm in a room where I don't think I'll be disturbed, I think I'll leave it that way just so I know I'm.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pastor Pusey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you, Brad?
Good to see you.
It's nice to see you. I have missed you.
Yeah, we can see you on Sunday mornings, but you can't see us, so.
Yeah. Your family doing okay?
Yeah, doing well.
Okay.
Council, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Burr.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Uh,
It's on. Can you not hear me? I move that we adjourn the meeting.
a motion to come out of,
Oh, I make a motion to come out of the executive session, sorry.
Second the motion.
have a motion second to come out of executive session. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Is that a no, Councilwoman Pro, or?
No discussion.
Oh, okay. All those in favor vote no. The ayes have it. We're out of executive session.
Now.
Another motion.
Yes, now we can adjourn the meeting.
A motion. Second. And a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. We're gonna go get started. Council, I'll call this meeting to order. For the record, it is July 21st, 6:03 p.m. We will begin this meeting with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Borton? All right, Councilman Cavanagh?
Here.
Councilwoman Thoreau?
Here.
Councilwoman Strader?
Here.
Councilman Hoagland,
Here.
Councilman Byrne,
Here.
Mayor Simison.
Here. Item number 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 is our community invocation, which will be led today by Tim Pusey with Valley Shepherd Church. If you would join us in the community invocation or take this as a moment of reflection at this time. Pastor Pusey.
Thank you. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you tonight for your blessings in our lives and your blessings in and over this community. Thank you for those who serve our community, for Mayor Simison and our council, for the many, many servants of our community, like our police and firefighters and many who serve behind the scenes. I pray tonight, Lord, you'd give wisdom and guidance to our city council. We acknowledge that these are incredibly challenging days, and we humbly seek your guidance. And Lord, we pray for healing in our community and in our land. And Lord, speak peace into each of our lives and into this community, we pray. In Christ's name, amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Council, item 4 is adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Byrne.
I move that we adopt the agenda as published.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hoagland.
second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as published. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. Item 5 is consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Byrne.
I move that we approve the consent agenda for the mayor to sign and for the clerk to attest.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hoagland.
second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda for the mayor to sign and clerk to attest. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The consent agenda is agreed to. There were no items moved from the consent agenda, so we'll move on to item 7, feature meeting topics of forum. Mr. Clerk, do we have anyone sign up this evening?
Mr. Mayor, we had nobody sign up.
Okay. Then we will move right on into item 8A, our action items. And I will turn this Finance Department report regarding the adoption of the fiscal year 2020 amended budget in the amount of $121,622,504 over to, do we have them on Zoom or are they in person?
Mr. Mayor, Jenny Fields is on Zoom.
Okay, I'll turn this over to Jenny.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I am here to facilitate the adoption of our approving of our fiscal year 2020 amended budget in the amount of $121,622,504. This is just a direction for staff to publish the amount for our public hearing at August 18th. So with that, I just need your guys' approval on this amount to notify the public.
Council, any questions for staff on this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Kavner?
I don't see anybody raising their hand or wanting to pipe in, so I move that we approve item 8A, the adoption of the fiscal year 2020 amended budget, the amount of $121,622 and $504.
Second the motion. It's Liz.
I have a motion and a second to approve the 2020 amended budget. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilman Hoagland.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, that was for $121,622,504.
Correct.
Correct?
Yep.
That's
Councilman Cap? Okay. Thank you. We just had a hard time hearing.
Got it. I'll be louder. Thank you, Councilman Hoagland.
Any discussion? If not, Ms. Mary, do we need a roll call on this one? All those, okay, then, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item 8B is also from our Finance Department, approval of the fiscal year 2021 tentative budget in the amount of $129,364,101. I'll turn this over to Ms. Fields again.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. This is for the tentative 2021 budget, the original amount of $129,364,101. I just need your guys' approval and it for public noticing.
Thank you, council. Any questions? This will be the number that will be published for the public hearing in August.
Mr. Mayor?
So I have a motion. Council Cavanagh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move we approve item 8B, the approval of the fiscal year 2021 tentative budget, the amount of $129,364,101 for that amount to be published in our public paper of record.
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 8B. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item 8C is also our Finance Department, approval to reserve foregone revenue associated to the fiscal year 2021 budget in the amount of $1,091,204. I'll turn this over to Ms. Fields again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here again this is new to our budget development this year because we elected to take the 0% allowable tax increase. We need to formalize our foregone. We are asking council to approve the reservation of our revenues associated with our fiscal year 2020 budget in the amount of $1,094,204. And this again will come in front of you as a resolution drafted by legal after our closing of our public hearing.
Council, any questions? If not, do I have a motion to approve item 8C?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Burr.
I move that we approve item 8C regard to reserve foregone revenue associated to fiscal year 2021 budget in the amount of $1,091,204.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Holden.
second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 8C and instruct this to be brought back in the form of a resolution. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. We'll bring that back through the budget process. Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate your time. We will move on to item 8D, public hearing, proposed fall 2020 fee schedule of the Meridian Parks and Recreation Department. And I will turn this over to Jenna.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of council. Yes, we're just going for the 2020 fall fee schedule for our Meridian Parks and Recreation activity guide. And as you can see, the fees in Exhibit A. Yeah.
Council, do you have any questions regarding Exhibit A regarding the 2021 fee schedule? If not, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, this is a public hearing. Do we have anybody?
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public, either in the audience or online, who'd like to provide testimony on this item? If you're on Zoom, just hit the bottom, raise your hand button. Seeing nobody who is wishing to provide testimony on this item, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hoagland.
I move that we close the public hearing for the proposed fall 2020 fee schedule for the Meridian Parks and Recreation Department.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. I'll move on to item 8E, a resolution number 20-2217, adopting the fall 2020 fee schedule of the Meridian Parks Recreation Department. Mr. Nair, does this need to be read by the clerk?
Yeah, just the title.
Okay, I ask the clerk to read it by title, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's resolution number 20-2217, a resolution adopting the fall 2020 fee schedule of the Meridian Parks and Recreation Department, authorizing the Meridian Parks and Recreation Department to collect such fees and providing an effective date.
Thank you. You've heard this read by title. Is there anyone who would like it read in its entirety?
Mr. Mayor.
Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Hoagland.
I move approval for resolution number 20-2217, adopting the fall 2020 fee schedule for the Meridian Parks and Recreation Department.
Second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
I have a motion and a second to adopt item 8E. Is there any discussion on the resolution or the motion? If not, ask the clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh?
Aye.
Perot?
Aye.
Strader?
Aye.
Hoagland?
Aye.
Burnt?
All ayes, and the resolution is agreed to. Item 8F is a public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant CDBG Program Year 2020 Action Plan. I will open this public hearing with staff comments and turn this over to Crystal.
Sorry, I just got kicked off for a second. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So I'm here today for the final presentation for the CDBG action plan for the upcoming year. That is beginning October of this year and will end September 2021. Is my presentation available by any chance?
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Campbell, I'll get that up for you. You are able to share your screen if you have it there. Otherwise, I can bring it up.
I should be able to do it on my screen. Give me just 1 second, please. All right, so as I said, this is the final presentation for our action plan. The purpose of the action plan is to identify strategies that will meet the goals of the consolidated plan in the upcoming year. We do this in a way so that it can help the public to hold us accountable for what we say we're going to do with this, and also for transparency. We work with the community to make sure that the goals stay relevant in each consolidated plan and planning year. So we try to make sure that we are involved with stakeholders throughout the year, that there's a public comment period of at least 30 days. We have at least 2 public presentations, and we also finish up with a public hearing. For the PY20 action plan, all of our projects fall under these categories. We will be funding some projects for our admin fair housing. Under public services, we'll be working with Jesse Treef on their emergency rental assistance program, as well as the Boys and Girls Club for scholarships for youth. Under the housing category, we'll work with Ada County Housing Authority on their homeownership assistance program, as well as NeighborWorks Boise for their owner-occupied home repair. And for accessibility, then we will be providing funding for the second and final year of the Fairview Avenue sidewalk connection, as well as the West Chief Joseph streetlights. We also have a couple of backup projects related to streetlight modernization. We received 3 different public comments. You can see the full public comments in the document, but a couple of them CDBG is an excellent resource for nonprofits working to prevent eviction and homelessness in the community. At a time when our city is growing so quickly and home prices and cost of living are rising so much, it's more important than ever that we continue to provide support for folks in the community who may not be able to keep up financially. And another excerpt from one of them was regarding the rehab, the homeowner rehab, and just talking about how there's a lot of people who need these repairs that can't make them. We made several updates to the originally presented plan. There were 9 separate ones to be exact. On page 2, we updated the summary of public comments. Page 16, we included Unity Through Inclusion and Central District Health to the list of groups that we consulted with. On page 23, we updated the summary of the comments received. We also included an estimate of 2,000 households benefiting from accessibility projects. We included the homeowner rehab program to the description of Meridian's efforts to foster and maintain affordable housing. We included coordination efforts with the Central District Health to the description of actions to reduce lead-based paint hazards. And then we updated the chart for the public comments that were received and included copies of public notices and the signed grant application documents. So moving forward, this is what we've got tonight. We have our public hearing and closing the public comment period once that's done. After that, next week, then I will submit the final report and a resolution for you guys to adopt. And I will make sure that that is submitted to HUD by the end of the month. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Crystal. Council, any questions for staff? Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience or online who'd like to provide testimony on this item at this time? If you're online, just use the raise your hand function at the bottom of the screen. Seeing nobody wishing to testify at this time, council, any further action or information needed before you close the public hearing? If not, I'll accept the motion. Councilman Hoagland.
I move that we close the public hearing for a Community Development Block Grant Program Year 2020 Action Plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing on item AF. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. With that, we'll see that back in front of us next week. So thank you, Crystal. Appreciate your efforts on this.
Thank you.
So council, we will move on to item 8G, a public hearing for Brody Square, H 2020-0032. And I'll open this public hearing with staff comments and turn this over to Alan.
Alan Tiefenbach, Associate Planner with the City of Meridian. Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. This is a proposal, and we have 15 acres of land. This is a proposal to annex and zone 15 acres of land with an R8 zone district, a preliminary plat for 65 lots, and this also includes vacating about 275 feet of Daphne Street. So here is the future land use of this property, which is recommended for low-density residential. It's presently zoned RUT in the unincorporated Ada County. It looks like okay. I noticed that the panes from Zoom are on the aerial, but you can see the aerial on there as well. 4 accesses are proposed to this property. The first one, the east access, is from Black Cat Road, which is a minor arterial. The west side of Black Cat Road has already been developed with a buffer and a sidewalk. The east side, thank you. I've got a little tool blocking my presentation. Thank you. The east side of North Black Cat Road is presently not been developed yet with curb or sidewalk. This is Daphne Street, presently right here. It's connected through the middle of this property. The eastern access would be Daphne Street out to McMillan. There is also a stub to the south, so the property to the south has not been developed yet. And there is also another stub to the east. The property is up here to the east. There is a subdivision to the north that is building out, but the properties directly to the east have not been developed yet. This is Daphne Street. Daphne Street runs directly through the property. This proposal part of it would be to vacate Daphne Street and to push Daphne Street down to the south. And the reason why they want to do that is they would be creating this central open space feature here. Originally, at the time of the Planning Commission meeting, this pond was configured a little bit differently. The purpose of this pond is this is an irrigation pond. They don't have continuous irrigation to this property, so they need to catch the water and store it into this pond so they can release it over a period of time. So they have designed this pond into the project. The original version of this pond, there was an additional little finger that projected into this open space here. The first trail came to the east and it stopped at this pond, and then there was a second trail that came down to the south and also stopped at the pond. Staff had an issue with this, and we told them that we didn't think that their open space should be credited as being qualified open space with this abrupt stop in their trail system. We also thought that they should reconfigure their pond to make it a little more usable. The applicant originally was resistant to this idea, and this was one of staff's conditions of approval when we went to the Planning Commission. At the Planning Commission shared staff's concerns and thought that the trail network should connect and that this pond should be a little more usable. After a bit of discussion, the applicant removed one of the lots. So originally lot 61 was down here. You can see where my cursor is, and this pond projected into this. At the public hearing for the Planning Commission, the applicant was amenable to removing this lot and pushing that little finger down and creating the pond in more of a circular manner. And with that, they also connected the trail network here. With that, they addressed the comments that staff had. At this Planning Commission meeting, one of the adjacent properties owners came in. His name was Paul Portman, and he was at 5230 North Black Cat Road. His house is up here to the north, if you can see where my cursor is. It's shown as lots 42 through 44 there. Mr. Portman was overall supportive of this project. He spoke pretty highly of it. His only concerns were that he didn't want to see two-story homes looking down onto his house, and he wanted to have some kind of privacy wall that was built there. The applicant apparently worked with him very well, but there was nothing that was actually solidified to ensure that was going to happen. So the Planning Commission added a few additional requirements. The first one was that these three lots that are shown here as being 42 through 44, that homes on those lots would be restricted to 1 story. The applicant also agreed to a requirement for a wall there. So that was the second thing that the Planning Commission added that staff had not originally recommended. You'll notice in the staff report, we originally had a concern about a northern stub access here. There was a couple of different versions of this subdivision that were by different ownerships. And at the time that there was a different ownership to the north, we thought that that stub street would be required. When they purchased, the applicant was able to get some of the property to the north. It no longer made that stub street required. And I tell you that because that was an original requirement in the staff report. That was stricken by the Planning Commission. Staff was okay with that. So with that, that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, Council.
Thank you, Alan. Council, any questions for staff?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Hogan.
Quick question, Alan, on that fencing and that 6-foot fence. Was that a 6-foot fence on top of a 6-foot berm? Did I read that correctly?
But that was with the other project.
Okay.
The other project next door, it is hard to keep track of the two. It's a 6-foot. In fact, I think that the Planning Commission's recommendation suggested the applicant construct a wall to the north. I don't think it said what the materials would be or what the height was.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Comment and then maybe just a quick question. Alan, appreciate your report. If you can, especially when you respond to questions, really keep the mic. It was pretty challenging for us to hear your response to Councilmember Hoagland. I got the gist of what your response was, but just for your own benefit tonight. Mr. Mayor, my question about the pond, is there any feature built in within the pond that circulates the water or anything designed to kind of prohibit mosquito accumulation? I know that sometimes happens with a lot of these water features.
I think I'm going to defer that to the applicant. I know that there are some requirements in our code in regard to the ponds not being stagnant. My understanding is there's not a circulating system. This was discussed at the planning commission meeting. This pond, is my understanding, is not going to be a permanent pond. About 6 months out of the year, it's going to be dry. I think that the applicant's engineer would probably do a better job of describing that for me, sir.
Great, thanks, Alan.
Council, any other questions for staff at this time? Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Mr. Mayor, I may have a question for staff while we're waiting.
Sure, go ahead, Councilwoman Schrader.
If Kyle is available or someone else from the Public Works Department, I just think for this area of Meridian, it might be interesting for us to sort of hear, you know, that this is all connected, it's contiguous development for the sewer trunk that we have, and then understand any kind of water. Just give us a feel for the services that are in place and that we're ready from an infrastructure perspective because they're right next to the high school is my understanding, but to go through that might be helpful.
Mr. Raddick?
Councilman Strader, Mr. Mayor, this is the first time I addressed you, Mr. Mayor, and I just about said Madam Mayor, so sorry.
You need to come to council more often, it sounds like.
Yep. I guess this one would be of the three that are on tonight, this one is the farthest away from the new school. This one's really, the Black Cat area has fairly complete infrastructure around there, and this is actually a county sub, which is probably the only reason there's no city infrastructure in that to the east of this. But in general, of the three applications that are on the agenda tonight, they're pretty typical as far as the infrastructure around them and building the system. Are they exactly the puzzle pieces that you would ideally want to build your system? No, I don't think we ever get that. Example, over on McDermott with the other two, you've got the school property bringing the water in a loop, and school is bringing the sewer trunk along McDermott, and those other two developments are simply attaching to those pieces of infrastructure. The one, I think it's, oh, I can't remember the name on here. Not Checker Ridge, not Brody Square, the next one. What's it called? Lupine, yeah, the Lupine one will hook on to that McDermott trunk sewer, and they'll actually take the trunk through their development to enable the next development. But essentially, that's what we have going on. Is the previous developments have enabled these developments to hook onto the infrastructure, and there's in general there's really not a lot unique about these particular ones. there were a couple of staff comments that there were dead-end water mains in a couple of these, and that also is a fairly standard comment. If water engineering had our way, we would have no dead ends in the system. I think the water operators would probably like that too, but it's not always possible. We also take into account what is pending around the subdivision. If there's a dead end, but we're relatively certain that development is going to come soon and attach to that dead end, then it's not as much of a concern. Of course, the reason our dead end is a concern in general is because we're concerned about the age of the water that might be in that dead end, and it contributes to water quality problems sometimes, depending on how fast those people that live on the dead end use up that water. Sometimes there's no problem, but it's a common comment, and we try to we have a reasonable standard. If there's a reasonable connection that we feel that the developer can make to eliminate a dead end, we're going to ask for it. And in the cases that you have tonight, we didn't have any of those. So I'll stand for any other questions that council might have.
Mr. Mayor, maybe just a quick follow. Just to confirm, Kyle, it's not that the water is bad there, right? I just read water quality on one of the other applications, jumped out at me like, whoa. But it's not the quality of the water from the well. What you're saying is it's just the nature of development for contiguous development. It's just not circulating as much, basically. Is that right?
Councilwoman Strader, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. It's a water age issue. Certainly, all the water that comes out of our sources, our wells, our boosters, meets all the water quality standards. But when you have water in the system for a long period of time, and generally, my feeling is that you want to use up the water in your system in a day or a day and a half. If the water stays in the system for a long time, you can have issues with settling of some of the constituents in the water, or some maybe disinfection byproducts, things like that. Just water quality doesn't improve. Water's not like wine. Doesn't improve if you leave it in the system too long. So yes, Councilwoman Strader, all the water comes out of our supply, meeting all the requirements of good quality, and we want to keep it that way. And one of the ways we do that is by using it up quickly.
Do we need another one, Mr. Mayor?
They're ready to go unless you've got more questions.
No, I'm good.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, can you hear me okay?
We can. Thank you, Deb.
Great, thanks. My name's Deborah Nelson with Givens Pursley. My address is 601 West Bannock Street. I'm here representing the applicant. And tonight here with me are the project's development team, Randy Clarno with Pinnacle Land Development, and Tim Nicholson, our engineer with Kimley Horn. You may also be familiar with some of Randy Clarno's other projects in the city with other successful quality residential subdivisions, including Kingsbridge and Shelburne. We greatly appreciate staff's work on this and their explanations tonight of what has changed with the Planning and Zoning Commission. We're proud to be before you this evening with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission that we are in full agreement with. I'm trying to advance the slides here. Let's see if I can. It's not, we did it before, but thank you. Okay, a little technical difficulty. So we'll start just briefly with the vicinity. It is a 15-acre site. And I guess one of the things I wanted to point out is that this is an assemblage of 3 5-acre lots from an old county subdivision. This layout that we've provided with this development provides the city with a much more efficient use of this land that is allowed by the redevelopment, and it's consistent with your comprehensive plan. There are still some remaining county parcels immediately to our east and south, but otherwise this vicinity is surrounded by the city limits and immediately adjacent across Black Cat to our west and immediately adjacent on the north. Councilmember Strader's, your questions about services, it was very difficult to hear, so I'm not sure that we heard all of the responsive comments, but just in general, I want to highlight that we do have sewer and water immediately adjacent to this site in Black Cat Road. This site is consistent with your comprehensive plan, and what we have proposed here is R8 zoning. Your medium density residential designation calls for a density range of 3 to 8, and our density will be 4.26. We do now have 64 residential homes that we're proposing. The staff report does describe 65, but we did give up one home site to accommodate the change in the open space that staff described, and I'll touch on as well. This is the updated site plan showing those 64 detached single-family home sites. Our irrigation service, as staff noted, is provided by Settlers Irrigation District via the beach lateral. This lateral is not a constant delivery system. The project receives 36 hours of service per week. So a pond and a pump station will be constructed on site for the irrigation water storage and pressurized irrigation service. This really provides an opportunity for us because it provides an attractive amenity for our central amenity area. So it's something that people enjoy looking at when they're in the park area. And so we're actually excited about the opportunity to provide this. Councilmember Kavanagh, you did ask about issues with mosquitoes. Because it will be a pumped pond, it will have active circulation while it's in use during the irrigation season. The distance to groundwater will keep the water from remaining and being stagnant through the winter non-irrigation months. So that should address your concerns. In general, we've got support from everyone who's commented on this. We are in agreement with all of ACHD's conclusions and conditions. As noted, the Daphne Street will be rerouted around the central amenity. ACHD is supportive of that, and this will provide a safer traffic flow rather than a direct east-west connection there. This development will also increase the street connectivity with the 4 stubs around the property. I don't think I need to address the stub to the north because, as staff indicated, both staff is now in support of the proposed northeastern stub really shown in this slide, as was the Planning and Zoning Commission. As staff described to you, we did make a change at the Planning and Zoning Commission to the pond configuration. And this side-by-side slide really shows that the changes that were made. And we're pleased with the outcome, with the connectivity, with the pathway coming from the north down into the central amenity. You can see we did have to lose a lot to reconfigure this, but the developer was agreeable to do that. This is just a little closer up so you can see the connectivity that comes through the north, running north and south down to this larger amenity space. The open space has 2.67 acres, 16.5% overall, which is 11.5% of qualified open space. Only one amenity is required for a development this small, and it's provided here with the central amenity with the pond, and adjacent to that, there will be a covered picnic area, the ramada, along with tables and benches and a seating area, a seat wall that's shown here. I've got some pictures to help illustrate this a little better. Here you can see the Ramada and some examples of amenities and features within this park area. An example of a seating wall in the pond. And here's an example from another development approved in Meridian of an open area between the homes with attractive landscaping. Of course, we will also have a pathway. The architecture style of the project will be a mix of contemporary forms and modern styles, with an elegant and plentiful blend of materials ranging from stone to stucco and board and batten siding. Home sizes will range from 1,600 to 3,000 square feet. It'll be similar to the homes in the surrounding new developments. We will have a mix of single-story and two-story homes, and as staff noted, we have agreed with the neighbor to restrict 3 lots to single-story adjacent to their homes. We also have agreed to provide a solid fence and berm along their property to the north. Councilmember Hoagland, you asked about that description, and we do have both the condition from the Planning and Zoning Commission requiring the solid fence. We also have a plat note that's on the submitted plat that requires that to be a concrete material as requested by the neighbor. With that, I would stand for your questions.
Thank you, Deb. Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Perot.
So thank you so much for your presentation. The home elevations are lovely. They look really similar to Bridge Tower West, which I think is a very nice community close by this one. I'm curious about how the decision came to be regarding the picnic cover, the amenity that's the one main amenity that's presented. Just wondering if that's if you would share with us how that came to be the chosen amenity. I think a lot of folks in this area in general just use their backyards when they're gathering with family or friends, but just curious if you could give us some background on that.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Perot, I'll do my best, and if Randy Clarno has anything to add, I'll invite him to. I think the idea is that people really do enjoy having a gathering space where they can have a little more room and also have the space to gather with a larger group in an attractive setting. You know, when it's summer and this is in use and there will be a pond nearby, the landscaping is going to be attractive. It can be a destination for walking from the pathway. And so this similar style has been used in other developments that Randy has done in Meridian with great success. In fact, the particular architecture here was specified by the city when we had a different architecture style for the Ramada in a prior development, and the city requested we use this more modern look. And so it has been well received and provides a useful space for our residents. One further point perhaps that helps you understand why I think it's been so well received is the target market for this development is professionals or young families without children and empty nesters. That's the size of home and type of development that it tends to attract people that are looking for a more passive lifestyle amenity versus an active.
Council, any further questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Deb, jumping back to the pond. So if I understand correctly, 36 hours a week, the pond will be filled and then it'll be drained based on the use of your residents or of the residents for their pressurized irrigation for their sprinkler system. And that's how you're achieving kind of the water movement. Are there any other elements that you're including to help mitigate the mosquito problems we see in a lot of these?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Cavanagh, that is correct. And in addition, our engineer shares with me that it will also have an aerator to keep the water circulating.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Council, any further questions for the applicant? Yes. Okay, thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Chris, do we have anyone signed up to testify in this application?
Mr. Mayor, we did not, and we only have staff and other applicants online at this time as well.
Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to testify in this application? All right. Making any final closing comments?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, we're having a hard time hearing.
There was no testimony, so any like to make
Oh, thank you. No, we don't have anything else to add. Unless you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Mayor,
Council Administrator.
I guess I have maybe a question for staff. I don't know if now would be a good time or to wait until after the closing comments.
I would recommend now at this time.
Okay, that's what I suspected. I guess just a general question for staff. I had asked earlier this morning in an email, but I noticed West Data didn't comment on all three of these applications. And I asked if we could just have a follow-up. Is that because they're kind of taking some time to get their ducks in a row on their data and then they're planning to provide comments, or have they given us any direction that they're not planning to? Did we get any feedback on that?
I had a conversation with a developer yesterday, and I don't want to speak to the district, but what was conveyed to me in that conversation was at this point in time is they are very busy with other things. They're maybe not commenting on ones that don't have a real impact, likely because, at least in that area, there is capacity or planned capacity with the schools in that area. I don't want to speak on behalf of the district, but that was the sense I got.
Mr. Mayor, could I also respond to Councilmember Strader's question?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Thank you. We, as you noted, Councilmember Strader, there weren't comments from the district, but just in case you had questions, other members of the council had questions about that, we did confirm that we do have capacity in each of our schools. And so the elementary that serves this site is Pleasant View, which is opening this year. And so the capacity there is planned to have 625. And that is less than a quarter mile from this site. So on the same site as Black Cat, just to the northeast. The middle school that serves this site is Star Middle, constructed in 2018, also has capacity. The 2019 enrollment was 704 and the capacity is 1,000. And the high school that serves this site is Meridian High, has capacity. The 2019 enrollment was 1995, capacity is 2,400. So we did confirm those numbers just to make sure we did have capacity in each of our schools for this development.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Schrader.
Thank you. I appreciate you providing that. I suspected that was the case, but wanted to get a picture for it. And I know these are small, each application on their own, but when you take them together, it starts to add up. And we do appreciate their input. I know there's a lot on their plate. I'm hopeful that they're getting organized and we'll increase the communication going forward. But thanks for providing that context very much.
Council, any other questions? If not, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hoagland.
I move that we close the public hearing on H 2020-0032.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
second the motion?
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there a discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hoagland.
just kick off some comments here that I was very pleased to see that the developer took out one of those lots to change that pond configuration and redo the pathways, because I think that made it a much better development and amenity that I think the residents there will enjoy in walking through there and utilizing that area. So I appreciate them doing that and hearing what the Planning and Zoning Commission had to say about it and the work that they did, that Planning and Zoning Commission did in reviewing this and making those recommendations. So I think that makes it a good project and one that will fit well out there.
So wonderful. You'd like to make a motion?
Well, Mr. Mayor, hearing no other comments, after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move that we approve H 2020-0032 as presented in the staff report with applicant comments from the hearing of July 21, 2020.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item H 2020-0032. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Burrow.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Hoagland.
Aye.
Burnt.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carries. Next, we'll move to item 8, public hearing for Sugar Ridge, H 2020-0025. Public
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is a preliminary plat consisting of 63 lots, 8 common lots on 15 acres of land. It's important to mention in this particular case, this property has already been zoned to R8, so there are some existing entitlements on this property. A little bit of history, you may remember some of this. This property was part of a larger annexation of 108 acres that was done in 2018. It was called the Oahe High School annexation. So the high school property is down here, and this was at the time was called the Spriggle property. And there was a development agreement that was both for the high school and for this Spriggle property. I think it's important to say, and I'm going to talk about the access in a minute, but there were certain requirements of the high school as they were starting to build that would require them to put in these roads. And I put up this exhibit before I've shown the plat because I really think this tells a good story of the way that this works. So the Oahe High School is what you see down here in blue, and this is presently being constructed. And this road here to the south, this road is also in the construction phases. Part of the development agreement for this project said that the West Ada Schools had to build this road here, and they had to build this east-west road here. Here is the subject property. Up here is the Gander Creek subdivision, in which the final plat has been approved, but I do not believe it's been signed yet, and they have not started platting that I can know. I don't think they've started building yet, but it's already gone through hearing. It's already been approved. That Gander Creek subdivision up here is for 401 lots. So access, the primary access will occur from Ustick Road up this north-south collector into the property from the east. There is another future access that's going to occur to the north from the subject property up to West McMillan. And again, this east-west road here is required to be constructed as part of the annexation agreement. This red line that you see here, there is a lateral that runs along the north side of the property, the McFadden lateral, and there is a maintenance road there. And the reason for this is that any subdivision of more than 30 lots has to have a secondary point of access. Originally, the applicant wanted to take access to the east onto West McDermott Road, which would have been great, except that their Highway 16 is going to be built here, and when Highway 16 comes through, that's going to in effect cut off access. However, the applicant's been talking to the applicant with Gander Creek subdivision, and now they propose to take western access, and I'll show you in a second how that's going to work. I'm not sure yet if they have to build a bridge or not. I think that the applicant across the lateral, the applicant is still working on that, but my understanding is that they have been talking to the Gander Creek subdivision and they're amenable to that. That said, you'll notice that one of our recommendations was that no more than 30 lots no more than 30 homes can be constructed without a permanent secondary point of access. I want to point this out because I think this is important, is in the time between Planning Commission and the City Council hearing, there had been some discussion, and Joe Bonderno with Fire said that he didn't have an issue with there only being one point of access if all of these homes were sprinklered. That said, the applicant is proposing, and I'll go through that with their recommendations, that recommendation 1B be changed to say that no more than 30 houses can be built without a secondary permanent access or without all of the homes being sprinkled. So they wanted to add that as one of the conditions of approval. So here is the preliminary plat. And again, so the north-south collector comes up this way. This road to here will be constructed by the school district, and then this West Achievement Road, this is all the internal roads. This is a southern stub here. That's presently a 40-acre piece of property that has not been developed and is not in the city at this point, but if it did, we would have an access. This right here is a common lot, and then this is the lateral with the easement that I discussed. So under this present arrangement, if they wanted to take this way, they would come up this northern common lot and then come across this maintenance road. Now, this again would only be for emergency access. This wouldn't be for all of the other residents, just in case. This is the amenities and the amenities package for this project. And again, I think the applicant did a very good job of putting together these little exhibits to tell the story of exactly how this would work. In particular, what you're looking at here, this colored exhibit, what you see in green is sidewalk. What you see in orange is asphalt or gravel. What you see in blue is asphalt. This little nub here has changed since the Planning Commission. This is now going to be asphalt, which we're perfectly fine with. And then this here, this purple, is the lateral. And the reason why I show you this is all set up as sort of a small pathway loop. It's roughly, if you can watch my cursor, you can walk down this, take the sidewalk. This will be a path up here with some amenities, with some benches and stuff like that. You can also get in from a common lot here. You can walk down this lateral here. Eventually, there's hope that this will connect. Come back down here in a circle, and that's roughly about a quarter of a mile. So I guess if you wanted to do enough loops, you could do that. But I know there's some other projects coming in where they're actually looking at trying to connect all this together as well. The Planning Commission was overall okay with this. Their only concern was that there's children that don't always want to go on a quarter-mile walk. They need more things to do. So they had a recommendation that the applicant provide a second amenity. The applicant was perfectly amenable to that. That's what you'll see here. This little white dot, if you can see sort of where I'm moving around, they have agreed to put in a tot lot there. With that, they have already done what staff has suggested, and then they went on and did what the Planning Commission suggested as well. At the time that this project was heard, we did not have a staff report from ACHD yet. And there was some hesitation at the Planning Commission about whether they should hear this or continue this without a staff report from ACHD. Since that time, I have gotten a staff report from ACHD. It was all just general comments in regard to road templates. They did not express any concerns. At the Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission made a few recommendations, all of which have now been addressed. The first one was for the applicant to add an additional amenity, which they did. They also made a recommendation that there was the Highway 16 alignment is what you see here, and this piece of property is what is going to be given from the applicant for this highway alignment. Originally, they were just proposing a berm here. There's a requirement that you have to do this in our code. The Planning Commission commented that in the Gander Creek subdivision to the north, there is a berm and a wall of a certain height. At the time, they didn't know, and they wanted this applicant to tie into that. The applicant was perfectly amenable to doing that. So one of the conditions of the Planning Commission is that the applicant conduct a 6-foot berm and a 6-foot wall on top of that of materials and style to match Gander Creek. In your staff report, but not on this presentation, you'll notice that there was a detail of that, so they did include that on the plat. And the last thing was that the Planning Commission had some original concerns with these common drives. There's 3 of them. There's one here.
There, and then.
Sorry, I have a tendency to turn my head. My apologies about that. There are several common drives, and originally those common drives had more than one house being served on them. The Planning Commission was not comfortable about that. They recommended that common drives only be limited to 3 houses. The applicant did a little bit of tweaking, and so that condition has been met as well. So all of the conditions have been met. Staff recommends approval on this, as well as the Planning Commission. And the applicant, I think in their presentation, will request about that addition being made, that more than 30 homes can be built if they're sprinklers. And with that, Council, I will conclude or answer questions.
Thank you, Alan. Council, any questions? Okay. If not, I will invite the applicant to come forward and be recognized for 15 minutes. I assume that's Mr. Adams who will be presenting?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. This is Mr. Adams. Let me get my screen up for you.
And Matt, if you could say your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Matthew Adams, 462 East Shore Drive, Eagle, Idaho. All right, and Council, I assume you can see the title slide of my presentation. Thank you, Councilmember Cabinet, for nodding. All right, so I am really excited to be here presenting this tonight. This is a great project, and it's really the culmination of work I started with the Owyhee High School in 2017. The project is adjacent to so the project, here's a picture of the project, and this is adjacent to the school district parcel for the high school and the future elementary on the west. It's adjacent to Gander Creek South, as Alan mentioned, on the north. And there is a couple projects coming soon to the east. And then you'll be excited to hear I met with the property owner south of this project this afternoon, and they'll be working toward bringing an application before you in the coming weeks and months. So this project is starting to fit into what this part of West Meridian is becoming, with lots of great housing and great schools and great transportation with Highway 16. The advantage of not going first is you can address a few things that came up in earlier presentations. We've got sewer and water on this project that was constructed by the high school. And so we already have all of our sewer and water stubs to this location. And we just connect to it, run it through our streets, and then stub to the south for the next neighbor that needs to pick up those services. The West Ada School District, I know they didn't respond in writing. However, this particular property owner and this project has been partnered with that development from the start, and they are intimately familiar with what's being planned here and have been in favor of this project throughout its development. This project is focused on affordability, and affordability achieved through slightly smaller square footages, focused on quality, and focused on amenities. As you heard Alan say, we had a pathway amenity system we were really excited about. We came to P&Z, Planning and Zoning suggested an additional amenity, and the developer, my client, said, let's do it. It'll make our project better, and we're in favor of that. This is a bit of a rehash, but I think it's important to understand, because it's your first time seeing this. The Planning and Zoning Commission did in fact recommend approval, but there were 5 key points that they brought up during that meeting that we want to make sure we address. First is adding the 6-foot height fence, sound wall, excuse me, with 6-foot height berm on Highway 16, being consistent with Gander Creek South, to reduce common driveways to serve 3 lots maximum, to comply with ACHD, to establish secondary access for emergency vehicles, that's critical, and to add a second amenity. I'm happy to say I get to come and tell you we've done all these. I'm not going to argue or beg or plead. Here's, again, the same site plan you saw. It says revised because it's different than the plan that was before planning and zoning. The blue arrow indicates the location of the 6-foot berm with 6-foot sound attenuation wall. And this is a rendering of what that will look like. The one thing about this project that might not be intuitive when you first see it, there are so many trees on this project that it is going to be unique from day one. We have, there were a lot of trees there now, so we're able to keep several. We're excited about that. And we are mitigating a lot of trees. And so this street buffer to Highway 16 not only has the wall and the berm, but it has about 2 to 3 times the number of trees that code actually requires. And we're excited because that's going to add to the sound attenuation. The driveway, this one's an easy one. Shared driveways, you are limited to 6 lots each one. However, that's both sides. So it is correct, planning and zoning said, hey, let's do 3 maximum on each shared driveway. And we were able to achieve 1 driveway has 3 and the other 2 have 2. And 2 of these driveways on the northeast and northwest provide connectivity and walkway to connect into our pathway loop. The ACHD staff report. This did slightly, I mean, it was just general internal circulation system. However, it did indicate one thing we were unsure of, which was the widening of McDermott Road at our frontage. We weren't sure what was happening there. It does indicate we need to do that, and we will be doing that. That's not a problem at all. All right, let's talk about probably the most important thing, and Alan and Joe Bongiorno have been excellent to work with as we've worked to resolve this. This is circulation and secondary access. As Alan indicated, we do in fact have secondary access from McDermott, and that will be in place and will remain in place until Highway 16 is developed. We don't know when that'll happen. Indications from their consultant and from Merrill over at ITD is 2 years would be the fastest, and it could be longer than that, they won't say. The fact that it could go away is enough to motivate us to find another option. So that's where the Gander Creek connection comes in that Alan pointed out. Gander Creek will stub a public roadway to this location, our northwest corner. We have reserved right-of-way, future right-of-way, to bring a public roadway along the edge of the elementary school site. There are utilities in that corridor. And we will, if we decide to exceed 30 lots, we will, 1, build that, or we will fire sprinkle all the lots after number 30. So Joe asked me, he's like, okay, that sounds great, but I need to know which 30 lots you're going to build, and then you're going to stop until you have this secondary access. So we took a look at it, and what this demonstrates is that we would construct these 30 lots. We would not go beyond this until we had the secondary access constructed and in place, or we would start to build them with fire sprinklers. And as you notice in the center of the screen, we're picking up our tot lot amenity, because with this approach, we may or may not be able to get all of our pathways. This is what Alan had talked about, our suggestion for a slight change to the condition of approval. So the way this reads is that we will construct no more than 30 homes with current secondary fire access from McDermott Road. So 30 lots, that's it. If we want to exceed that, we will do one of three things. We will cross the McFadden Drain, connect to Gander Creek South. We will construct a connection out to Ustick Road. That one's a long shot, but we want all our options open. Or C, we will fire sprinkle all structures in excess of 30 units. The reason we're asking for some flexibility here is because we don't know if Gander Creek stub will be to that location. So we could commit to building the crossing, but it could not go anywhere to the north. Well, we could commit to going to Ustick and not be able to get through the 2 parcels south of us. We could commit to fire sprinkling and then have a different roadway option available. We will not exceed 30 homes until one of these 3 mitigation factors is in place. Common areas and amenities. So we know that there's a focus in the comp plan and a focus among planning and zoning and council to provide livable communities with great quality. And this project is dedicated to doing that. Our common area amenity pathway system, Alan kind of gave you an overview of the connectivity and looping. There is a really clean quarter-mile loop, but there's also a half-mile loop if you're willing to walk down the gravel on the ditch bank. And if you look at the recent parks, or I guess it was planning, they did a survey about amenities and open space, and in the top 7 items that people want, pathways is one of them. And so we're excited to be contributing to that. The upper left of your screen is the view down that 6-foot berm and 6-foot sound wall. And that's what that pathway would look like at that location as it heads north. And then we've just got some great images of what we expect to see happening in this pathway system. We're also really pleased that we can kind of hit maybe a bigger age range, because we're not only pathways, we're providing playground system and tot lot. And this is a view looking south into our central common area and what that tot lot area could look like. Again, there's pathway through that section as well. And then the image in the top center is the actual piece that we have suggested to the developer. And they like the natural look with the number of trees and the open ditch and the natural amenities in this subdivision. We're really excited also, this developer knows that even though a house could be smaller, less square footage, hit a better price point and provide affordability, it can still be a nice and quality product with very attractive features. So you see some examples of what they're planning in this area. And it is two-story. There are some single-story, but mostly two-story to get the number of bedrooms that people are desiring in the market right now. And garages, 2-car garage, driveway. And we think that these will be a very nice product. They will blend well with the Oaks and with Gander Creek and the other projects in the nearby area. The Trucker Ridge subdivision is a quality community, provides affordability and quality of life in West Meridian. The common open space and site amenities will improve the livability of this neighborhood. We have a strong buffer on the Highway 16 street edge, and we are protecting adjacent natural amenities as we leave the McFadden Drain open to promote wildlife, cooling of the area, et cetera, et cetera. And just a quick recap on these planning and zoning comments. We are excited to say that we have hit all of them. So that is the end of my presentation. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Council, any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Pro.
Matt, thank you for the great presentation. I just wanted to make a comment and then a request from you. The first comment is about the sprinklers in the homes greater or after lot 30. So thank you very much for considering that, because as I'm sure you've heard, council's been having a lot of conversations about supplying fire service in that area. And so that's something that was heavily on my mind as I was reviewing the application. And so that makes me a little bit more comfortable, although I think in general, we don't want to see a huge amount of residential growth out here until we can get fire and police services closer in that direction. So I'm glad that the applicant is willing to consider that. The second small request I wanted to make is that regarding the tot lot area, thank you for considering that second amenity. That was much appreciated because I know there's not a lot of parks out there yet, although I imagine some of the children in the area will use the school, the playground at the schools if it's open when the elementary school finally goes in, which may be a while. I noticed in my own neighborhood that parents wouldn't really go to the community park or hang out at the tot lot if there weren't benches there. They just didn't want to stand and didn't want to haul their chairs out there. So I didn't see it in your rendering, but that doesn't mean you won't do it. But if you wouldn't mind throwing a couple of benches in there, that would be great too. So thank you.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, and Councilmember Peralt, thank you very much. Appreciate those comments. I have a note right at the top of my page to point out the benches. But I'm going to take a look at that with the owner because what I show in the plan is like 4 benches total. And there's 2 at the tot lot and then 2 where our open space widens up for the pathway in the northeast corner. We'll take a close look at that, see if that seems like the right number or right fit. But yeah, some seating amenity I think is important. And Alan and I had talked about that as well. Thank you.
Council, any additional questions for the applicant? Okay. Chris, or Mr. Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to testify on this application?
Mr. Mayor, we did not.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to provide testimony on this application? Or is there anybody online who's waiting to testify on this item? If so, please indicate by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. Seeing no one who wishes to testify on this item, Matt, would you like to make any final comments as the applicant?
The only thing I want to say, I don't know if it matters much, but I never hear it in presentations. I know Bob and Judy Spriggle, who sold this property, and their dream is to be able to retire from the sale of this. And their son was helping them. Well, he passed away last year. He's a young guy, 50 years old. And this has been a really kind of chaotic process for Bob and Judy. I've become friends with them just by being their neighbor with the high school. Well, they had already bought a new house and this project was moving slower than it was supposed to, and they were going to be in a financial crisis. Our client, the developer, fronted them the money to purchase their new home so that they wouldn't end up basically homeless, because my office and I wasn't moving as fast as we could have. It was quite amazing. And I think sometimes it's fun to hear that there's really amazing things that happen in the mix or amidst this the development community, and what you don't always hear on the presentation. So I wanted to thank my client for that, and I'm excited that Bob and Judy are able to retire now. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Matt, for sharing that.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Burr.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second the motion.
I have a motion second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Burr.
To confirm, what was the final verdict on what Matt said in regard to the benches and such by the playground?
Mr. Mayor, I had heard him say that he had 4 total, 2 at the tot lot and 2 on the pathway.
Okay.
That was my recollection as well.
Do we need to include that in the motion, or?
Can't hurt.
Okay. Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Burnt.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H-2020-0025 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of July 21st, 2020, with the addition of secondary access considerations. Applicant will construct no more than 30 homes with current secondary fire access from McDermott Road. Prior to constructing home number 31 to the end of the project, the applicant will provide one of the following additional solutions to mitigate the future construction of the Highway 16 Expressway. Option A, construct roadway crossings of the McFadden Drain to connect to Gander Creek South. Option B, construct connection south to Ustick Road. Option C, fire sprinkle all structures in excess of 30 units, Unit 31, until the end of the project. Also to include park benches specified by the applicant in, I believe there was a couple by the tot lot and 2 others in another location that was mentioned on the public record.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the item with a very well thought out motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Perot.
Aye.
Rader.
Aye.
Hoagland.
Aye.
Burnt.
Aye.
All ayes, motion passes. Thank you very much. Up next, we have item 8I, a public hearing for Lupine Cove, H 2019-0133. I will open this public hearing with staff comments and turn this over to Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The next item on the agenda this evening is the Lupine Cove project. The application before you is a request for annexation and preliminary plat. The site consists of 7 acres of land currently zoned RUT in Ada County and is located at 4000 North McDermott Road. Adjacent land uses and zoning, we have approved and existing residences zoned R4, R8, and RUT in Ada County. Comprehensive plan future land use designation for this property is medium density residential, in which the city can anticipate a density range between 3 to 8 dwelling units to the acre. The plat that's proposed before you this evening consists of 3.7 dwelling units to the acre, which is within the lower range of the density desired in this area. If you recall, the applicant was before this body on April 28th to discuss a remand so that planning and zoning could have a look at a revised plat in hopes that both staff and commission can bring forth a recommendation of approval for this body. I'm happy to note that the staff report was updated to reflect staff's recommendation of approval for this project, and the plat before you this evening also is endorsed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The subject plat before you consists of 26 residential lots. One of them includes an existing home that will remain as part of this project, and 6 common lots on a total of 7 acres in the proposed R8 zoning district. Lot sizes range from 4,353 square feet upwards to 13,924 square feet. The plat is proposed to develop in a single phase, and I'm happy to report that all of the lots do comport with the R8 dimensional standards. One of the items that was discussed at the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing was whether or not there was adequate transition along the southern boundary. If you had a chance to look at the aerial here, you can see that there are 5-acre lots that abut the southern boundary of this particular project. That was discussed by Planning and Zoning Commission. In their finding of that, during that hearing, they did find that there was adequate transition between this development and the county residences to the south. Access to this development will be from McDermott Road, which is designated a collector roadway. One of the main reasons for staff's recommended denial for this project, and ultimately endorsed by the commission, was the fact that it had more common driveways and less stub streets to the adjacent properties. The plan that's before you this evening does provide a northern stub street that ties into an adjacent development called the Aegean subdivision, and that is in the development process as we speak. And then also the applicant, per the comprehensive plan and UDC, we require interconnectivity. So we do require stub streets at the southern boundary to those 5-acre pieces as well. And if you note on this plan, you can see that the temporary turnaround is on the common lot, and that does meet the fire department and ACHD requirements for a temporary turnaround. So my cursor here, you can see it here, there's the temporary turnaround for that stub street. Originally, staff had recommended that they flip the temporary turnaround and restrict the buildable lots from developing until the road's constructed. However, Planning and Zoning Commission sided with the applicant and was fine with it remaining on the common open space lot that you see before you this evening. Open space for this development consists of approximately 0.83 acres of land. Half of that is the buffer along McDermott Road, or all of it is the buffer along McDermott Road, because it is a collector street. They get to count all of that as part of the code. And then the 2 central open space lots, you can see there meet UDC standards. One of the unique things about this development, it's similar to what you just acted on with Chucker Ridge directly to the west of this project, is the fact that the applicant is seeking a council waiver to leave the McFadden lateral open. And that was something that the commission or the council did grant the Aegean subdivision to the north. So the applicant is asking for this body to leave that waterway open. And then as part of this development, they're creating an HOA over that waterway so that it can be owned and maintained by the HOA in the future. There aren't a lot of improvements within that easement area due to Nampa Meridian's requirements, but the applicant is willing to at least maintain the weeds and keep it more of a natural state, just like the Checker Ridge development across the street from this particular project. The applicant is proposing more amenities than required by code. So essentially there's going to be a gazebo area in the northern central lot here with a micropath that feeds to it. And then also on the southern boundary, there's also a proposed micropath that stubs to the south for interconnectivity, also ties into the temporary turnaround, and also provides an access to the tot lot that's also proposed with this development. You can see on the graphic before you, I have a couple of tan arrows, and this was a recommendation of staff that the applicant, although the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District does not want an official city pathway within the common lot, there will be an access road that residents will be able to walk along if they want to, more like a nature hike, if you will. And so staff thought it would be a great amendment to at least provide some micropath stubs to those common lots for access. During the Planning and Zoning Commission, it was testified that Nampa Meridian may not allow that because they want to deter people from walking along the canals, not invite them to go along that waterway. So the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend or modify those conditions of approval and said those pathways could be constructed if allowed by Nampa Meridian. So what you're seeing here, if Nampa Meridian doesn't allow it, then these pathways, micropaths, will not be stubbed to the waterways along the perimeter of this project. The other unique feature with this development is that there's over 1,900 caliper inches of mature trees that need to be mitigated for. The applicant is working closely with the city arborist to make sure that they can preserve as many mature trees on the site as possible. I can let this council know that the first rendering did not take into account a lot of the mature trees, and that was some of the reservations, the hesitancy of staff to recommend approval of this project with the first rendering because we were just losing too many mature trees on the site. I mean, the intent of the code is to preserve and enhance those mature trees, and so this plan before you eliminates a lot of the common driveways, but it also loses lots and preserves a lot of those mature trees on the site, at least more than what the other plan did. So the applicant, as they work through their final plat, they're going to have to come forward with their mitigation plan, and we'll take a look and see how many caliber inches they're actually saving with this proposed development. Again, here's the landscape plan. The two amenities, as I mentioned to you, here's the amenity detail for the tot lot, and also the gazebo area on the northern lot. And then the applicant is proposing these style of elevations for you. Like typical developments, anything up along Meridian Road, or excuse me, McDermott Road is going to require some design review from staff. At least we're going to look at that before we issue building permits. We want to make sure that two-story homes have a mix of materials and the backs of those homes modulate along those roadways. As I mentioned to you, the Commission did recommend approval at the June 18th hearing. They found that the revised plat was a substantial improvement over the previous one. Speaking in favor was Penelope Constantikis and Derek Kerner. There was no one speaking in opposition or commenting. Written testimony was submitted by Sue Wag. Her concerns dealt with the development affecting the wells and water quality in the adjacent county subdivision. The applicant's engineer confirmed that this would not be the case, as this development has to provide its own municipal water service, so it should not impact their wells or their water quality. Key issues of discussion by the Commission, again, lot transition on the southern boundary, coordination with the Nampa Meridian irrigation for the walking path connections to the 5-mile McFadden drain easement area, a relocation of the turnaround on the buildable lots, and then also the Commission spent some time talking about the feasibility of that southern Stub Street being extended in the future and whether or not those 5-acre lots would develop further into the future. Key changes to staff recommendation, the Commission struck condition 2E and 3C requiring the relocation of the temporary turnaround on buildable lots, as I mentioned in my presentation. And then the Commission also modified condition 2B requiring the pathways stubbing to those open waterways if allowed by Nampa Meridian irrigation. So really the only outstanding issue for you this evening is taking action on whether or not you approve the existing waterways to remain open as allowed in UDC 3A-6. Staff looked at the public record before the hearing this evening, and there was no additional public comment since the Planning and Zoning Commission. With that, staff and Planning and Zoning Commission are recommending approval, and I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Bill. Council, any questions for staff at this time?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Strader.
quick question, just for my own education. It seems like a great amenity to have it open and kind of in a natural setting. I'm assuming there's some sort of a fence that comes along with it. Is that the concern, why it wouldn't be approved? Is it a safety concern? Or just give me a feeling for why, I guess, the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District doesn't view these as a natural pathway or a natural amenity.
Does anybody have a quick answer? Because this is its own couple-year topic, but Bill, you want to try?
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to provide some content on it. I mean, I've worked closely with the Irrigation District over the years, and I think Councilwoman Strader hit it on the head. It's safety. It's public safety. As you're aware, every year they come out with their public messaging about drowning and not swimming in the canals. This body has the ability to require fencing if they deem it a safety issue is present. I can assure you this area is fairly wide. The applicant is proposing fencing along the perimeter of the buildable lots, but nothing up against the canal. So if, again, that's within your purview. If you think there is a safety issue, the applicant can work with the irrigation district to erect fencing along that waterway and try to minimize some of that concern. But these waterways are pretty much open throughout the community. So short story is it's safety, but long answer, to them, it's just water delivery. It's not considered an amenity like the city views it.
Thank you. Council, any other questions for staff anyways? Okay. If not, we will turn this over to the applicant. And I'll apologize and not try to state the last name of the applicant, but you're recognized for 15 minutes. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Penelope Constantikis, representing the applicant. My address is Post Office Box 405, Boise, Idaho 83701. And just I'm going to take a little out of sequence. I just wanted to mention that in that northern open space lot, the one with the water feature and the gazebo and the pathway,
Penelope, if we can get you to hold on 1 second, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Let's just try to do that. Okay, I can hear you better. I'm gonna push it. Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. In my next life, I'll be louder. This one, I'm kind of quiet. Sorry. So anyhow, I just wanted to backtrack on that northern open space that is adjacent to the drain easement. The applicant is proposing to put in an open vision 4-foot fence along that perimeter for safety reasons, because we'll be more likely to have families in that common lot, and the fence will provide them from, or prevent them from just wandering into the drain easement area without being, but it'll be open vision. So anyhow, last time we were here, you remanded us back to Planning and Zoning Commission. And we thank you for that because we had a successful P&Z hearing, and we're here before you this evening. Just a couple of notes. As Bill mentioned, the shared driveways have been removed. The stub street to the north was added. We increased our open space and we have more than enough amenities. There was a decrease in density and the geometry of the site is greatly improved. So with the Planning and Zoning Commission approval, there were some changes as Bill outlined. The cul-de-sac is going to remain where it was proposed. There was quite a bit of discussion about the landscape plan and the tree mitigation. I'll get into that in just a few minutes. The pathway connection to Lot 5, which is the northern open space, is not required. But the pathway that's following the stream feature that we have will terminate at the gazebo area instead. I just wanted to mention, we do have a stream feature in this on this plat in the open space. There's an artesian well located on this site. If you look at the subdivision plat and the landscape plan, it's along the western boundary of the southern open space about midway, and it produces a lot of water. So the open spaces, the common lots in the subdivision will be irrigated with available artesian water, and the leftover will be routed through the stream feature that we have in the open space in Lot 5, I believe it is. And it's pre-development flow, so it will discharge into the McFadden drain at that location. Let's see, I'll reference the pathway in Lot 14 in a few minutes. With regard to the tree mitigation, the applicant's representative and I met with the arborist on site on July 2nd. And we spent quite a bit of time there, well over an hour. We walked around and looked at all the great, nice, healthy, stable, mature trees, and talked about keeping as many of those as we can. So he's updating the mitigation plan. We're actually backtracking all the way to the beginning again because the arborist felt that maybe some caliper inches were included in the tree mitigation plan that maybe should not have been. So he's updating the mitigation plan. I think our caliper inches deficit is going to decrease as a result of that. And so we'll continue to work with the arborist. The updated landscape plan that was before you this evening has some of the trees that are existing that we're pretty confident we'll be able to keep. And that will be expanded once the arborist is done updating his mitigation plan. He has free reign of the site anytime he wants to come out and look. And we look forward to working with him to retain as many of the caliper inches as possible on the site. And as stated, the applicant is very agreeable to that. Those trees are nice and they're a great amenity. So we'll work real hard to keep as many as we can. The open space is consolidated. We feel really excited about the way the open space turned out. They're in close proximity, but they serve different areas of the plat. And we've provided multiple amenities. We have a child's play structure. You just saw a cut sheet for that a few minutes ago. We have a gazebo. We have the water feature, which is a stream, and the pathway that connects to the gazebo will follow along that stream feature. There's a 50 by 100 foot grassy area. We have linear open space, and then there is a micro path within the two open common lots. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the irrigation. The applicant is very fortunate, and the future residents are, that this site has an artesian well on it, so it'll be utilized to the greatest extent possible. Regarding the pathway in lot 14, Jeannie Fishburne and I went to Nampa, and we followed Greg Curtis around until we could actually stand face to face with him and talk to him about how they feel about the drain easement. So he submitted an email in which he stated that he felt a pathway on the drain easement wouldn't go anywhere, and that it wasn't part of the master plan for the city of Meridian, pathways either current or proposed. So based on Greg Curtis's comments, it's really quite unlikely that a connection along the south boundary of lot 14 would be approved. It encourages people to go where they're not authorized to be, and I don't know that we can in good conscience put something in the plat that would encourage people to go someplace that they weren't supposed to be. So let's see, what else would I like to tell you about? So as it stands now, a path in lot 14 would not probably be the best idea. So other than the caveat about the pathway in lot 14 and even implicitly encouraging people to walk along the drain easement, we're in full support of the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval and their conditions of approval. We would like to leave the drain open. It provides quite a bit of habitat that will benefit the residents in the subdivision, because those birds will be looking for seeds and fruit and things that they'll be able to find at the homes. There were no objections from the neighbors. And with that, I would be happy to discuss anything that you would like to discuss. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Penelope. Council, any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Perot.
Penelope, I remember this application very well for some reason. I remember when it came before us, it really stood out to me. So I'm glad that you've stuck with it and brought back, I think it's a much, much better design, and appreciate the connectivity that you agreed to with the access on both sides of the development. I do have just one clarification about the creek and safety. It sounds like that there will be solid fencing all along the north side of the back of the homes, and then in the common area you're going to have open fencing or maybe wrought iron fencing 4 foot, so no one should be able to essentially access that drain area from the development unless they go outside of it. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. That's basically what I wanted to make sure of.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Hoagland.
Penelope, quick question regarding the artesian water. That's fantastic that you have that you're going to use it. However, I know things change. I remember when I was a younger man, at the northwest corner of Ustick and Linder, there was a fantastic flow of artesian water that used to be there. Has long since disappeared. And what are your plans if that's the case with this artesian water down the road? What will you do to replace that water? And do you have a system in place for that?
Mayor, Councilman, I guess I would start by saying it's unlikely that it would disappear. Probably what happened with the site that you referenced is that it ended up being piped underground, and For some reason, sometimes things disappear because they go underground and they're not convenient to deal with. As far as I'm aware, the applicant is planning on retaining the artesian well. There's really no reason to remove it. If in some unfortunate instance that well did go away, all of the infrastructure would be present to sprinkle the houses. They just have to change the connection to domestic water.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Hoagland.
That's good to know, Penelope. Appreciate that, and I do hope it doesn't go away. That's it's always nice to have something like that on the property to use. So, and it sounds like you do have the infrastructure. Could switch out if that were the case, and like I said, I hope not. Thank you.
Councilman Burr.
I like the idea of the idea of passive open space, so to speak, native grass and keeping as many large trees as possible. Penelope, do you have? I'd like to see what that looks like around the perimeter. You know, along the easement along the canal there, or is there? Is it pretty wooded? Is it pretty open, or is there existing native grass? Are you going to? I mean, are these plans that you're going to do? Or is it already there?
Mayor, Councilman, passive open space is a great idea, and at this time there are some trees in the easement area that we are showing on our landscape plan as being trees to retain. Obviously, the irrigation district has the authority to take anything out of an easement area that they deem is inconvenient for them. These trees that we're proposing to keep are pretty close to our subdivision boundary, not our property boundary. And so there's really no reason for them to go away. The applicant is amenable to planting fescue, which would be a natural plant, and it's drought resistant, so it doesn't require any irrigation. But we are planning on leaving it as natural. It's a great habitat area. I'm sorry, I might not be answering your question. If not, perhaps you would restate it for me.
Mr. Mayor, follow up.
Councilman Barrett.
I live in a subdivision where there's a lot of native grass and a lot of cool walking space where you wouldn't necessarily play there or recreate there, but it's just a great amenity to have where people walk and it's peaceful, and it's you almost feel like you're away from the city when you're walking through it. So I'm just sort of trying to picture if that's what you're talking about and what you're proposing along the perimeter of this project.
Mayor, Councilman, I'll refer you back to Nampa Meridian Irrigation District's position on the drain easement. This drain easement area is not included on any of the City of Meridian's formalized pathway plan, and there's no existing agreement between Nampa Meridian Irrigation District and the City of Meridian to permit any kind of recreating along that drain easement. So it will be more of a visual amenity. I know folks do go walk on irrigation district easements across the valley. I'm guilty of doing that. But at this point in time, any kind of walking activity along that drain easement would not be authorized by the irrigation district. So having said that, if people do walk it, it's would be between them and the irrigation district. We just can't encourage it or in some way support access to that easement. Does that answer your question?
Mr. Mayor, follow up.
Councilman Burr.
I guess I'm not promoting, having a walking path on that easement per se, just sort of wanting to know what it's going to look like.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I apologize. So the easement will just retain its natural condition as it is now, which there are some trees and some bushes. And the fescue will be planted, and that's just basically throwing the seed out there. It'll take hold on its own because it's a naturally occurring species. So it'll just retain its current condition, which is essentially some open areas, some bushy tree areas. You can see in the lower right-hand corner, there's quite a few trees there. And there are quite a few trees in the middle section of the northern boundary. If you look at the landscape plan, we're planning on retaining as many of those as we can. When we talked to the tree arborist, we talked about keeping trees that were on boundaries of sites of building parcels, and also trees that were in side setbacks where there won't be any utilities. So a lot of effort will be put into retaining trees. But if you look at the landscape plan we submitted, the cluster of trees that are shown along the midsection of that northern boundary, those are all depicted on our current landscape plan as being trees that we would like to retain if possible.
Perfect. Thank you, Penelope.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Pro.
So Penelope, if I'm understanding this correctly, so the HOA is going to be responsible for maintaining that natural landscape in the area, in the easement area, correct?
That is correct.
And what if the property owners insist on being able to use that space because they feel like they're paying for I've seen this happen in other subdivisions, it's happened in my own. I'm curious how, or if that's going to be addressed through covenants, and how that will be, you know, like, I don't know what the right word is, how that will be followed up on. Will the HOA have a management company that will be tracking that? Just, you know, if it's being owned and maintained by the HOA, now there's a liability element to it, et cetera, et cetera.
And the liability is the reason why any kind of a pathway connection would be an issue. And I apologize, Mayor, Councilwoman. Other than doing some weed management, and I don't know, whatever incidental work would be needed occasionally to maintain the general natural condition of the easement, I don't believe that there is any other plans for managing the easement area. Mayor, the applicant would like to add some comments. Is that possible?
Yes. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Jeannie Fishburne, and my address is 4000 North McDermott, the actual subject property. Mr. Mayor and councilmen, I just wanted to mention that, you know, we've kind of talked about that. A lot of people will walk on the pathway probably if they want to. It's really hard to police that. What we'll probably do in our CCNRs is make note in there that it is not an official walking path, and it's recommended that they do not use the pathway. But we really aren't going to have any means of monitoring that and chasing anybody down if they choose to go on that pathway, as people do sometimes. You know, we really can't make the HOA be responsible for chasing people down, but we will have that in the CCNRs. It will be pointed out that it's not an official walking path. And that's why we're going to have the fencing as well, is so that we encourage them to do the right thing. And there's lots of walking paths within the subdivision, so we hope that that'll be adequate for them and encourage them to stay on those pathways. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could add
Yes.
just another comment on that, thank you. So not too far to the north of us is the 5 Mile Creek, and there is a beautiful formal pathway along that that's part of the Meridian Pathway Plan. And with the stub street that's going to lead north to Aegean subdivision, the residents in Lupine Cove can easily walk through the Aegean subdivision and get up to that formal pathway. They can bike up there or walk up there, and it's not very far away. So their accessibility to the formalized pathway system in the city of Meridian, it has been enhanced with that stub street. So they won't have to go out to McDermott Road to get north to this pathway along the 5 Mile Creek. They'll be able to do it internally, walking through neighborhoods instead.
Council, any further questions to the applicant? Okay, this is a public hearing. Mr. Clerk, do we have anyone sign up to testify on this item?
Mr. Mayor, we did not.
Okay, well, unless Madam Deputy Clerk wishes to testify, we have nobody else in the audience. Is there anybody online?
Mr. Mayor, there is not.
Okay, well, then with that, I will turn this over to the applicant for any final comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just be happy to answer any additional or follow-up questions that the council may have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Hoagland.
Penelope, real quick, it sounds like on that, it won't be allowed by Napa Meridian Irrigation District, the access and the pathway conditions, and I know the commission had modified condition to be requiring that if allowed. Do we know that's official, or do we leave that condition in case they change their mind? What are your thoughts on that? Where do you come down on, was that an official communication, or just they told you that and that's going to be likely they won't allow permission?
We do have, excuse me, Mayor, Councilman, we do have official correspondence from Napa Meridian Irrigation District. They indicate that they haven't seen any designs for any kind of connection to the easement area, but Mr. Curtis was pretty specific about the fact that there's no authorized pathway that could be utilized along the drain ditch. So I do have a copy of that email somewhere here in my files.
Councilman Hoagland.
Mr. Mayor, Penelope, thank you for that. I just wanted to clarify that truly was a communication that indicated that and make certain that was being communicated. So thank you.
Council, any further questions or a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Perot.
I move we close the public hearing for Lupine Cove H20190133.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
I'm happy to kick off a little bit of discussion. I just want to say it's clear from all the applications we've seen tonight that Planning and Zoning Commission is rocking and rolling and doing a great job improving things before they even get to us, and just super appreciate that. This seems like a nice project. I don't know where everyone else's head is at. I'm in favor of allowing it to remain open, given that it's fenced in. Feels like resolves a big safety concern, and I would hope one day people could view these as sort of a natural amenity, even if they're not in a pathway plan, but I'm inclined to keep it open and, yeah, it just seems like the right thing to do, and it's a little bit of a habitat for some wildlife there. So, overall, I like this project, and I don't know if Councilwoman Perot is going to make a motion. If not, I'm happy to do so.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Pro.
I will make a motion unless there are other, I see a lot of heads nodding, so I assume I myself agree with Councilwoman Strader. I think she said it well. I'm disappointed that the homeowners won't be able to use that pathway, but I understand the safety concerns, and as long as there's fencing there and they're protected, I am comfortable with that remaining open as she mentioned. So with that in mind, after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H20190133 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of July 1st, 2020. Don't believe we had any modifications.
Second, maybe adding that.
I have a motion and a second to approve item H 2019-0133. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Mayor, do we need to go ahead, and the one modification is to allow them to not cover granting a waiver to the 5 Mile Creek McFadden Drain remain open, I think, is the only thing we need to condition. So if the maker of the motion would include that in her motion.
I will. So the proposed modification is that the council agrees to leave the area, the McFadden Drain area, open and not require it to be tiled and buried.
Does the second agree? We have a head nod and a
Agree.
yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh?
Aye.
Perot?
Aye.
Strader?
Aye.
Hoagland?
Aye.
Burnt?
Aye.
All ayes, motion passes. We are to item number 9. Is there any items for future meeting topics? Okay, then we will move on to item 10. Mr. Nair, we did not vacate this item early on.
We did not, but we can vacate it now.
Okay.
That's so funny.
Do we have a motion to vacate item number 10 off the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to vacate item number 10 off the agenda.
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to vacate item number 10. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Do I have another motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Burnt.
I move that we adjourn the meeting this evening.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.